Hey everybody, Kevin here from ChangeWorks Interactive. Welcome to our show this morning. We have the incomparable Joe Almeida that's joining us today. The sun is shining here in Oakville. We've got a great day. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very welcome. Very welcome. Before we even get started, Joe, I bet you are going to do one of two things today, or maybe both. You're probably going to be watching golf because I know you're a golf nut, and
Yes.
you're probably at some point going to
Yes.
get out on your bike.
A little too cold for the bike, but I definitely will be watching some golf today.
Excellent, excellent. Good. Joe and I have been friends for a long time. We've known each other for many years, and Joe's got a very interesting work life and personal life too. And we're going to dive into some of those topics. Joe's the managing director of Avison Young, which is a big commercial real estate company that operates in 15 different countries and employs about 5,000 people. And Joe started off in 1991. He became principal of the firm in the year 2000. And he switched some roles recently, and we'll chat about that a little bit as we go. Maybe before we sort of jump into it, Joe, I want to share something with you. I read something recently by it's a group that's called the Council on Foreign Relations, and they say that the pandemic is going to lead to the decline of big city centers as companies move away from dense office spaces. Um, Others would say that the death of the cities are greatly exaggerated, and they cite examples of big cities in the east, like Tokyo, Hong Kong, Singapore, that even when the pandemic was raging, they adjusted and they really haven't skipped a beat in terms of the growth of the cities. Now, you're right in the heart of Toronto. You look at this stuff every day with your team. What's your take on this whole thing, Joe? Is it sort of the decline of the city, or how do you see it?
Well, yeah, I am downtown, right in the middle of it, as you say. But I actually live in the suburbs. I think you mentioned we both live in Oakville. So I made that
Mhm.
decision a long time ago to to move out to the suburbs and raise a family, like a lot of people do. And I think that's part of it. There's a lot of things that go into these decisions, but I know the Globe and Mail recently had an article where they quoted a StatsCan survey that said that there was a net migration out of Toronto in the year the year preceding July 2020 of 50,000 people, and that Montreal had a similar numbers, not quite as bad, but similar. So definitely people are reacting to this pandemic, and moving out of the dense city center. And I think you touched on employers and dense office space. There's also going to be some changes there. But I think at the end of the day, people want to live in the city center for certain reasons, right? They want to live close to the attractions, they want to live close to work, and that's not really going to change overnight. Millennials are not all of a sudden going to want to live in the suburbs on a long-term basis. It sort of makes sense right now, but I think the pendulum will swing back, and we'll see the cities continue to grow and thrive.
Yeah, do you sort of see like almost like a hybrid model, Joe, where people are maybe a little bit more flexible in their work hours, either working from home, because we've got a taste of that now. Some people really enjoy it, but I know a lot of people feel disconnected.
Yeah, no, it's not a one size fits all for sure. We have realized that over this past 12 months that employees can be trusted to work from home, and I think that was always a question mark in the minds of a lot of employers. So we've seen that, and we've seen that people can be functional and efficient at their job. So the horses are out of the barn, so to speak. It's hard to put them back in. Um, Without acknowledging the fact that there's different ways to do this. And I think employers, we're already starting down that path. Big employers in the GTA, like the accounting companies and the banks, they were already having a look at how they utilize their space and how the employees interact with the space. And I think the really good, smart companies were already making some assumptions that we're going down this path. And what I'm talking about is offering employees more flexibility in terms of where they work, whether that's at home or at the office or at a flex office location or at the coffee shop, and also when they work. Do we all need to go back to
Mm.
that 9 to 5 grind where we're all sitting on the highway at the same time coming in from the suburbs? That really doesn't make a lot of sense. And we've seen that we can be a lot smarter than that. So I think what we're going to see coming out of this is a whole different level of flexibility for employees, and the real estate is going to have to catch up to allow for that.
Okay, okay. Joe, we've known each other for a long time. I remember probably around the time when I first met you. You were sort of fresh out of university, and you graduated with an education degree. And then maybe let our listeners know how you pivoted to commercial real estate, because they seem disconnected, or maybe there's some connections that are there. And with that pivot, is there anybody that you'd give like sort of a shout out to that maybe mentored you or got you working in the commercial real estate space?
Yeah, as you mentioned, we met a couple of years ago when we finished university, you and I, right? Wink, wink.
Yeah, a
That would be nice,
couple.
but obviously it's a couple of decades ago. And by a couple, I mean more than two. But
Yeah, I had hair then.
kidding aside,
Yeah.
yeah, I came out of university. You, you had hair then. I, like a lot of young people, I went into university knowing that I wanted an education, but I didn't know what I didn't know, and what I didn't know was what I wanted to do in life. So I thought that education was a noble endeavor, and thought that I'd be happy as a teacher. I realized, thankfully, very early on, that it was not really the right career for me, and that I had more of a business acumen, or interest, I should say. Um, anyway, coming out of university, I did like most people coming out of Quebec University in the late 80s. There were not a lot of jobs, especially for English speaking people. So, like
Mhm.
most people in those days, I hit the 401 and moved to Toronto, where there was plenty more opportunities to choose from. And when I got here, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had the good fortune of meeting somebody, a young lady who was a friend of one of my roommates, who ended up becoming his wife down the road. But she gave me a great introduction to the commercial real estate business. She was already quite successful at that time, even as a mid 20s person. And so it gave me an opportunity to see a whole different career path, different opportunity, and one that I quickly realized was much more suitable to sort of my strengths and aspirations. So that was quite a shift, quite
Yeah, I think you're
a change, I
absolutely
guess,
bang.
in career.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely bang on there, Joe. Is that everybody is different, and we really have to look at what our interests are, what our personalities like. I would imagine that you have to have the right personality to get into sales, for example. If you're going to get into commercial real estate, you have to have the right personality for that. And speaking of young people that would want to get into the field, what's some of the things that you might advise that would maybe give them a leg up to sort of get through those barriers and allow them to get started?
Yeah, it's a great question. The commercial real estate industry does have a few different sectors to it. So sales and brokerage is one part of it. Uh, for our company, for example, we've got a property management business where we manage about 400 million square feet for different clients around the world. We've got valuation and appraisal, as well as project management, which deals with construction. So all those are very different. Um, so someone coming into the commercial real estate industry, the real first question is, what are your desires, number one, and what kind of skills are you bringing to the table? And then let's find the career path that's most suitable for what you have and what you'd like to do. Because 100% commission sales is not for everybody. And if you don't have the right work style and the right attributes coming in, it's very, very difficult to teach that kind of thing to someone who doesn't feel comfortable in a high intensity selling environment. Um, so it's really about take a look inwards. Let's find out what your skills are and where you're best suited. And we have some tools that help us with that up front in terms of work style assessment, monitoring, and that kind of stuff. So that's really the key thing: is find the right path, find something that ideally you're already passionate about commercial real estate, and that's what led you to this point. But once you're here, let's find the right path forward.
Excellent, excellent. Joe, I want to talk about, just pivot a little bit. I want to talk about, and I think there'd be value in our listeners just knowing your story too, of how you pivoted from being in a sales role and now you're managing a fairly big headcount. What's that been like for you? And maybe tell us about that transition. What sort of things I guess would have prepared you for that, or what kind of things do you face now in this role that you wouldn't have faced maybe in a sales role?
Yeah, great question. It's been quite a change over the last few years. As we mentioned before, I've been doing this since 1991 with Avison Young, and I had a sales role for the first 26 or so years, and then because of a change in our office where I worked, we had an opportunity for me that opened up to start managing as well as selling, and that was a great introduction to this future change for me because it allowed me to sort of see both sides of it, and I realized that I did have sort of the ability and the desire to manage people. So I did that, wearing both hats, so to speak, for a couple of years, and then just recently transitioned 100% out of sales and into management, looking after the operations as well as a brokerage of our Toronto office, and that's about 100 people, which is quite different to the traditional sales role. You are basically one of the things that attracts people and attracted me was the freedom and the ability to sneak away on a Wednesday afternoon and play golf or this kind of thing. Well, when you're in the management role, it's not quite as easy. You don't quite have the freedom, and that's a tough thing to get used to. The other thing is that you're fully engaged all the time instead of looking after one broker, being yourself. I've got a team of 50, and that's a lot of issues that need to be dealt with on a regular basis. So you really have to be ready to sort of be engaged. I wouldn't say 24/7, but it's a little more intense in terms of the time requirement and just the mental requirement to be fully involved with everybody's issues and trying to help them
Yeah,
advance
yeah.
either their
So you're
career
sort
or
of on, in
yeah.
some ways, you're sort of on call for that group. And you're saying, when the headcount gets to be about 100 people, I would imagine that you take on a lot more responsibility. That you think of, the HR, and you're kind of diving into people's lives maybe a little bit more. Inevitably, that has to bring on some stress. So maybe share with us, Joe, some of the ways that you manage that. There's lots of different ways that, people that I interact, for example, with, how they would, decrease their stress level or maintain balance in their lives. What's been the secret for you? How do you do it?
Yeah, well, luckily I'm the type of person that doesn't take on a lot of stress. I think this job would be very, very difficult if you sort of wore that on a regular basis. But even saying that, I think it's impossible not to acknowledge that everybody needs a little bit of de-stress. So for me, some of the things I like to do is just to get outside, get some fresh air. I love physical activity, so cycling and golf, skiing are some of my favorite things to do. And just getting some fresh air into the lungs, getting the blood pumping, that always helps. And then I like to do some other things sometime as well, just to get your mind away from some of the problems of the day, maybe just reading a good book or something like that. So those are some of the things that I like to do to sort of get the stress level back down to something more manageable.
That's great. That's great, Joe. Thanks for sharing your insights today. What my takeaway listening to you is that it's important to stay involved. It's important to think about those things maybe that are away from the office as well, and ways that we can manage stress. And certainly one of the things that I'm taking away from this is that I listen to you and I sound hopeful. I feel hopeful that things are going to start getting back to normal. The city is going to get back to normal, and we're going to return to some sense of normalcy again. So thank you for that.
Yeah. We're all looking forward to it, believe me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. And thanks for joining us again on our episode of Changing Gears. Today, we were speaking with Joe Almeida, and I invite you to stay tuned and to listen for that content that's coming out on all our social media platforms. Thanks again, Joe. Have a great day today, and I look forward to seeing you on the golf course real soon.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Look forward to it.